quota system in education is that every university would have a particular percentage of black people. And what this was promoting was this: whether they were qualified or not, as long as there's a university in this place, then such and such amount of black people must be in that institution. So the Jews said, no, even though we are 2%, which is much more smaller than the African American population in the America, they said we believe in competition. Let all things be done with merit. Let the students who qualify to enter into the Ivy League school based on merit, let them be the ones who have access into this university. Let the best man win. So the Jews believe in that. Even in their own household, we are going to study it. How that the person who becomes the heir to a particular dynasty is not necessarily the firstborn child, because it's the person who actually becomes the best child, the one who actually takes the necessary training. So in their own household, they practice that system. May the best man win. So the Jews believe in that. May the best man win. But the blacks, they struggled with this thing. They struggled with it. So what the black people were doing there was that, let's make a quota so that losers will appear as gainers or winners, as it were. Sadly, you see that quota system, sadly, it is something that many believers, maybe even you listening to this broadcast right now, believe in. A quota system. This is why a lot of believers are angry with people who did not help them. They say, he didn't help me. He did not support me. That sense of ownership, that sense of that's the word now. That sense of entitlement is actually born out of you believing in a quota system. So anybody who you see say they don't believe in quota system, let the best person win, but the person is angry that his uncle did not uplift him in society. That person believes in quota system. He just does not know that he believes in the quota system. So when you see money around, look at our society. I want to just show you something very interesting. Look at your society around you. When you see money around, if that money is not stolen, or that money did not come through corruption, both being illegal, it will be that that person who has that money is associated with a capitalist. Most of the time, that person himself is not a capitalist. Generally, believers find capitalism offensive, and they hinge it on the scripture. The scripture in Acts, where they said that the disciples had all things in common. What they're trying to say is, what's yours is ours. Are you seeing what I mean? Just think about it. Use your mind. So they say, what's yours is ours. In Acts, what happened is people went to sell their land and they brought everything in, and what's yours became ours. Then what now happened? Do you study the Bible continuously, or you just read that one portion? Maybe you've never read it, you just heard someone talk about it. What now happened? People abused it. People stayed in the camp. They would not work, but they believed what was yours is ours. What happened? Paul came and changed it. Paul said, let him that will not work, let him not eat. Who were the people they were fighting about in Acts 6? They were the widows. He said they were not feeding our widows. They were not giving our widows enough and all of that. Paul said, if there be a widow in the camp, and the widow is still of marriageable age, she should go out of the camp and marry. Paul said if the widow has children, her children should take responsibility for her. Are you all hearing what I'm saying? Because that idea of what yours is ours has made people come even to local churches. They don't want to do anything. They just want to cast their burden on the entire church. When Jesus gave the parable of talents, deep down there you will see capitalism. Jesus said, the man that could not produce 10 talents out of what he was given, let everything he has be taken away from him. So, listen, please. If you will break into real wealth, there is a law of ownership in this world that you must understand. In the kingdom, it is he that has that will be given. The law of ownership goes into play before the law of possession. But the law of ownership has one law that is constantly opposing it. It is the law of entitlement that I mentioned earlier. The man who has that sense of entitlement is a man that cannot have the sense of ownership. He doesn't have the sense. They are word and opposite. The man who carries around with him the sense of entitlement is the same man that can never have the sense of ownership. The law of ownership is critical to having in the kingdom. That's why when Solomon saw two women drag the baby, what Solomon said is, put the baby down and bring a knife. We would know who owns the baby. What you should learn from that story about Solomon and the two women that were dragging ownership of the baby is this. Solomon knew, that king knew, that there is a way owners think. There is a way owners think. That an owner who has built a thing will never stand comfortably to see what he built crumble. This is why people who steal money, they enjoy crumbling money. But they that built money do not enjoy. Are you getting what I'm saying? This itself is enough lesson for the day. There is a way owners think. So when they dropped that baby, the owner of the baby said, release the baby. Release the baby. When she thought of the labor that have gone into bringing this baby to life, carrying that baby for months, and the labor that went in and all of that, she said, release the baby. You see what I'm saying here? So what I'm saying to you is this. There is a mindset when it comes to ownership. And the man that must break into real wealth must actually come to understand the law of ownership. So back to what I was saying. So I said that the Jews actually teach their children the balance between the fear of God, which is the beginning of wisdom, and the value of money. So every Jewish child understands what you will call the worth of wealth. The worth of wealth. They show their children the value of money. Listen, you know, one of the things I told you that the Jews do is selective extravagance. Remember that, right? Let me show you something about it. Listen to this. They don't just put their children in fine cars. No. The Jewish family, they must have at least one expensive vehicle, a proper gadget. You know what I mean by that? But they don't just put their children in fine cars. No. They take their children and they say to their children, you see this car that you are in? This is how much that was paid for it. This is the price that was paid for it. That is, this is the value of this car. And they don't learn the lesson there. They take the children to a work field. And they say to the children, listen, you see those people working there? This is how much they aim. And this is how much this car is. See the distance between them. It would take 200 of those men working that job for this amount of time, 6 hours every day. It would take 200 of these men working this same job, 6 hours daily for, let's say, 100 days, 200 days, to be able to buy this car that you are now sitting inside and smiling. Says, do you now see the value of this car? What are they teaching that child? They're teaching that child that, listen, we have this car because I, your father, I have a particular knowledge and understanding that make this possible. Meaning those guys that you see outside, working there, It is because they do not have this particular knowledge and understanding of life that I have. That's why they are not the ones sitting in this car smiling the way you are smiling now. And then they take that lesson further and say to the young man here, if you don't break into this knowledge and understanding of life, in a few years, you will not be able to sit inside this car and smile. You will be out there working like those people. Are you getting what I'm saying? You know, they asked Condoleezza Rice from, there's a book, I would get the book, the e-copy, and send to SaltCity people. Sorry about that. You can write us if you are not one of us. info@mysaltcity.org. It was a book written about Condoleezza Rice, who was former Minister of Defense of the United States. And then there was something she was saying about arms. And then she said that this knowledge is only made available to Caucasians, Caucasian men specifically, that are above 40. Meaning the blacks will never have this knowledge. Meaning the blacks will never trade or do business when it comes to big and international arms deals. And she said she would try, and our own goal was to try to make this knowledge available to the average black man. Remember what I said when we started. Real wealth is gotten with what we call initiated knowledge. And you see that thing there is what Condoleezza Rice was talking about. This is initiated knowledge. And that initiated knowledge must be passed on through generation. You see, a Jewish man was saying something about this. He was on TV. And then he was saying that, my father taught me this. His own father taught him that. And my grandfather's own father, that is my great-grandfather, taught him this. And here is the lesson. Please learn it. They said when they see their children, their sons playing around in the house, young children playing around, they call those children and they say to them, if you like to play around, then you need to earn your free time to be able to play around. I don't know if you understand that. They say, if you like playing around, then you need to earn your free time to be able to play around. And they say, in real life, to be able to earn free time so that you are able to play around, you need to get a good education that would afford you elitist knowledge to get the kind of job that you'll be able to work at your own pace and be able to now buy expensive toys. This is not part of the note, but let me just say something here. We never outgrow toys. We only change the quality of our toys. Are you hearing what I'm saying? So when they see their children playing with toys there, they know that humans never outgrow toys. For some of you, your toy will be a car, real car. And you see a car, you like it, you buy it. That's a toy. So we really never outgrow toys. Our toys just keep upgrading. So he says to that boy, who's rolling a car on the ground, toy car now, and saying to him that, listen, if you like to play like this in life, then you are going to earn, look at that word, let it be the operational word, earn your playtime. Well, that's what I'm just saying. He says, earn your playtime. They say, haven't earned your way now, that when you have earned your playtime, you can now play around for much longer with far more expensive toys, but haven't earned your playtime. Then you will play much longer in life, and then you'll be able to what? Play with far more expensive toys. But they said, this thing I just told you see this principle of earn your playtime, they say is a word order. It's a cosmic order that can never, ever be disrupted. Earning your playtime. He said, if you do not follow this principle of earning your playtime, he said the world will fight against you. The world itself, the cosmic system itself, will fight against you. The system will not work for you. He says, if you don't earn your playtime, this is what is going to happen to you. You are going to either end up without toys or end up without any playtime at all. See, this is it's simple. It's so simple. So like the Bible would say, the gospel, he says, the simplicity of the gospel itself is the reason why it eludes and slip off a lot of people. The law here is you have to earn your playtime. And if you don't earn your playtime, you are going to end up without any playtime and without any toys. You know, what I'm saying to you is this. The Jews take their children around and show them the bills that they pay for them to be able to afford the quality of life that they live. You know what this instills into a child? Yes, we can afford it. Yes, we can have this. But don't ever make the mistake to think that it came to you for free. Time goes. Let me just give you a little statistics about the Jews. 87% of Jewish men have university degrees. 69% of Jewish women have university degrees. And let me tell you a shocking statistics. Among all the ethnic group on the earth, when the research was done, they found something about the Jewish man. That there is no Jewish man who is willing to do any form of manual labor. That the research has now shown that manual labor no longer exists among the Jews. Let me tell you something. When the Jews got to America, Americans wanted to use them. The average Caucasian people wanted to use the Jews as their slaves. So they built a school called the New York Institute for Technicians. And they built that school to teach the Jewish people handwork, so they'll become the handymen throughout the nation. Let me tell you something amazing. The Jews began to hold underground town hall meetings. No Jew went to that school. Go and do your research. No Jew went to that school. And all they said is, you want us to sell our destiny. Our destiny is to dominate. We will never go to those schools. You can't find a Jewish carpenter. Yeah, what I'm doing is to really open your mind. The Jews do not play sports. They don't play sports. They tell their children, you are either going to own the company, the entire sports company, or you are going to be running around chasing leather. They say you are going to sit behind this glass, having the best view of the field, watching them run around, or you are either going to be running around chasing leather. They tell their children, listen, running around is what the black people do. That's what they do. He says, so when the black people are practicing how to run around, go and practice knowledge so you can buy them and the club they want to run around in. I don't know if you are, I wish I was seeing your face. I don't know if you are getting this form of education. The Jews, they said there is no wishful thinking here. The problem with our faith now is there's too much wishful thinking. I am the head and not the tail. True. The moment somebody asks you how, you're offended. Don't bring your negative energy near me. You're offended. Don't bring that. What do you mean? What exactly is this thing that is going to make you the head? By asking that question alone, the believer says, you don't believe in me. You don't believe in me. Relax. The Jews believe that you need exact knowledge of a particular field in this world, and is in that exact knowledge of that particular field, that's there God is going to pour down the dew of heaven upon you, and you are going to be among the world's 1% of people who prospers in that field. I'll tell you how successful these guys are. And I also want to tell you it is not a fluke. It is not a mistake. When they got into any society, Germany, America, Britain, and all of that, these guys were the ones living in the ghettos, the outskirts of town. So you are in a fine place if you live in those kind of places. You know, they were interviewing some Jewish men in America, and then I am trying to remember his name. He's a politician in America. Very wealthy man. And then as they were having that conversation, they said something among themselves. They said, you know, we started from the bottom. And they said something there. They said, if you do not start from the bottom, there are particular things, lessons that you may never learn. And once you are not able to learn those lessons, he said you can never really amount to true wealth. He said people who started from the bottom, they know how to show up on time, and they know how to take and execute orders. These bring a particular exactness in how they do business. Because when you started from the bottom, you needed to be there when your boss wasn't there. And you needed to know how to take orders and execute them. It's a people who don't start from the bottom. People who just inherit things. People who have things thrown on their laps. They don't have this skill. One, they don't know how to show up on time. Two, they don't know how to take and execute orders. He says, listen, in order for you to take part of wealth, you must understand the subject of loyalty. Loyalty. You must understand how you cannot stand in public and stand with someone who stands against the person you call a mentor. Loyalty. You see, listen, we will get into this loyalty subject. It's a class of its own inside this Jewish thing. To get into true wealth, you must understand loyalty comes first. Let me read to you a few statistics as a wrap up here. In 1890, the Jews practicing medicine in New York, you could count them on your fingers. They were less than 10 in the year 1890. In the year 1900, there were about 400 to 600 Jewish doctors in New York. How many years apart? Just go and do the maths. And several professionals of them everywhere in 1900. Now, exactly 40 years later, in the year 1930, 55% of all the doctors in New York were Jewish people. And 64% of all the lawyers in New York were Jewish people. 40 years later. From 10 to 55% of every. And here's the shocking statistics. By the time they got to the year 1950, 87% of all the applicants of every medical school in the United States were Jewish people. Go and study it in 1950. That's where they brought the quota system. It was the quota system that they used to restrict them from taking over their schools. They said that the way we are going, that by 1960, all the doctors in America would have been Jewish. Now, you see these statistics I just read to you. You should sit down and think about it. Then you will know it is what? It is systematic. But let me tell you how strong this systematic thing was. Before the year 1800, the Jews were not allowed secular education in America. That is, they didn't let them come into their normal schools. So how did the Jews get it? I'll tell you. The Jews had a system of studying the Bible, and they built an academic module out of the Bible. Their intellectual capacity was based on their religion. That is, from reading the Bible there, they developed intellectualism. They were called the people of the book. Their intellect was from that book. So, listen, so even when they didn't allow them to come to secular schools, they grew intellectually from studying the Bible. The Jews trained their children to ask questions. Nowadays, we ask questions and they say we are rude. That thing there is one of the reasons why the children around are not intellectually sound. The Jews have what we call intellectual integrity. Now, let me explain that intellectual integrity and let me shock you. You never find a Jew saying, "My rabbi said." Are you hearing what I'm saying? You never find a Jew saying, my rabbi said this. The moment a Jewish man says, "My rabbi said this," in the synagogue, they say to that man that he has no intellectual connection to what he's about to say. That's why he's crediting it to somebody else. That he himself does not understand that thing he's about to say. So the Jewish people do not say, "My rabbi said." But you see this thing I said, if you think about it deeply, we oppose it today in the church. The Jewish people are trained to own their thoughts. They are trained to have a connection, that critical analysis there. So when they came and opened the secular school to them, they brought that thing into education. That is their own faculty of being able to think things through. And that's why they became geniuses. They excelled. They quizzed everything. But today in the church, it is not the same. It's almost as though we are destroying any form of individual intellectual capacity inside the church. When we got born again, we search the scripture. We will study. You open the Bible by yourself. Today's Christian does not want to search anything. He doesn't want to look at anything. He says, "My pastor said." My pastor said. There are even those who you open the Bible and say, "This is what the Bible is saying." My pastor said is bigger than whatever the Bible is saying. And then we are wondering why it seems as though real wealth is not coming into the Christian faith. It's because we do not have the intellectual capacity required to be able to carry real wealth. Simple as ABC. It's already 7:05, but let me share this thing. I've done a research and I'll tell you something. Among believers, many believers who did not have the campus fellowship experience are not strong enough, are not deep enough. As simple as ABC. So it seems as though that there's a particular thoroughness that is lacking in today's believer. We don't want to talk about church system, where nowadays we are just giving the people fast food, just dropping it there. There is a critical faculty wherein you are able to think things through and own your own ideologies that we now need to develop within the church. What I'm saying is this. You listening to this broadcast, you are saddled with a responsibility, a call for the faith, a fight for the faith, a contention for this whole Christian thing, for you to be able to develop in yourself this critical faculty and teach it to your family. Because this individualism, when it comes to intellectual prowess, if we do not attain it in our faith, we will not be able to really manage through wealth. So I want to ask you this evening, I'll leave you with a question. Who owns your thoughts? Who owns your thoughts? Next week, Monday, I'll pick it up from here on how to own your thoughts, how to develop that critical faculty that leads to you owning your thoughts. God bless you.